He thought no one would ever trace it back to him. But digital footprints never lie.
Welcome to Cheating Story Exposed. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss the next story. Every day, we uncover the truth, one secret at a time. My name is Lauren Mitchell, and I learned the hard way that in corporate America, your work is only yours until someone more powerful decides it isn't. I'm a software engineer, or at least I was when this story began. 29 years old, 5 years out of graduate school with a master's in computer science from a decent state university. I'd been working at Tech Vista Solutions for 3 years when everything fell apart. Tech Vista was a mid-sized software company in Austin, about 200 employees, focused on enterprise resource planning systems for manufacturing companies. I wasn't anyone special when I started. Just another developer in a department of 12 people, writing code, fixing bugs, sitting in endless meetings about sprint planning and velocity metrics. My boss was a man named Gregory Thornton. 42, been with the company for 8 years, worked his way up from senior developer to engineering manager. He had that particular brand of charisma that middle managers cultivate, friendly enough to seem approachable, vague enough to never commit to anything specific. For the first 2 years, I did exactly what was expected of me. I completed my assigned tickets, participated in code reviews, kept my head down. I was good at my job, but I wasn't trying to stand out. I'd seen what happened to people who pushed too hard in corporate environments. They got more work piled on them for the same salary, or they made enemies of insecure managers who felt threatened. But in my 3rd year, something changed inside me. Maybe it was turning 29 and realizing I'd been coasting. Maybe it was watching less talented people get promoted because they were better at politics than programming. Whatever the reason, I decided I wanted more. The opportunity came in February of last year during a department-wide meeting. Our VP of Engineering, Patricia Vasquez, presented the company's strategic challenges. TechVista's main product was becoming outdated. Our competitors were implementing machine learning features that could predict maintenance needs and optimize production schedules. We were still using rule-based systems that required constant manual updates. Patricia didn't mince words. We need innovation, people, real innovation. If someone has ideas for how we can integrate predictive analytics into our platform without completely rebuilding from scratch, I want to hear them. I saw Gregory's eyes light up during that meeting. Not with ideas, I'd worked with him long enough to know that look. It was the expression of someone seeing an opportunity for advancement. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the problem Patricia had described. I'd done my graduate thesis on lightweight machine learning models optimized for embedded systems. I understood both the theoretical side and the practical implementation challenges. I started sketching out ideas. Not during work hours initially, but at home, in that dangerous zone where professional obligation and personal obsession blur together. I spent my evenings researching the latest papers on model compression and edge computing. I outlined an architecture that could plug into our existing system as a modular component, gradually learning from production data without requiring a complete system overhaul. After 2 weeks of night work, I had something concrete. A 20-page technical proposal with architecture diagrams, proof-of-concept code snippets, and a realistic implementation timeline. I called it the Adaptive Insights Module. I should have known better than to show it to Gregory first. But I was naive, and he was my direct manager. That was the protocol. You didn't bypass your chain of command. I scheduled a one-on-one meeting with him on a Wednesday afternoon. I remember feeling nervous but excited as I walked through my proposal on my laptop. Gregory leaned back in his chair, nodding occasionally, asking questions that seemed thoughtful at the time. "This is really interesting work, Lauren," he said when I finished. "Really solid thinking. Let me take a few days to review this in detail and we'll figure out the best way to present it to Patricia." I felt validated, seen, like maybe my work actually mattered. "Could you send me the full proposal document?" Gregory asked. "I want to really dig into the technical specifications." I should have hesitated. I should have wondered why he needed my document when he could have just reviewed it with me present. But I was 29 and stupid and desperate to believe my boss had my best interests at heart. I sent him everything. The proposal document, my proof of concept code repository, my architecture diagrams, my implementation notes, everything. A week passed. Then 2. When I asked Gregory about next steps, he was vague. "Still reviewing it with some people. These things take time. Don't worry, you'll get credit for your work." Those last 7 words should have been a warning sign. People don't promise you credit unless they're already thinking about how to take it. 3 weeks after our meeting, Gregory sent out a calendar invitation for an urgent department update meeting. All 12 engineers were required to attend, plus Patricia from executive leadership. I walked into that conference room with no idea what was coming. Gregory stood at the front with a presentation loaded on the screen. Patricia sat at the head of the table with her laptop open, looking interested. "Thank you all for making time," Gregory began. "I've been working on something over the past few months that I think could be a game changer for Tech Vista." My stomach dropped before he even clicked to the next slide. The presentation title appeared on the screen. Adaptive Insights Module, A. Modular Approach to Predictive Analytics Integration. My title. My exact words. I sat frozen as Gregory walked through my proposal. He'd changed some of the formatting, rephrased a few sentences, but the core content was mine. Every architecture diagram, every implementation phase, every technical challenge I'd identified and solved. He presented it all as his own work. I looked around the table. My colleagues were nodding, taking notes. No one knew. No one had any reason to suspect that the man confidently presenting at the front of the room was committing intellectual theft in real time. Patricia was particularly engaged. She interrupted several times to ask detailed questions, and Gregory handled them smoothly. He'd studied my proposal thoroughly enough to defend it. He understood it well enough to sound like its creator. "This is exactly the kind of forward-thinking innovation we need," Patricia said when he finished. "Gregory, I want you to lead the implementation of this. We'll allocate budget and resources. This could be our flagship feature for next year." Gregory smiled humbly. "I appreciate the confidence, Patricia. I'm excited to bring this vision to life." I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and expose him right there. But I couldn't make my voice work. I was paralyzed by shock and betrayal and the horrible realization that I'd handed my career advancement to someone else on a silver platter. After the meeting, I approached Gregory in the hallway. My hands were shaking. "That was my proposal," I said quietly. "That was my work." Gregory looked at me with an expression that was almost pitying. "Lauren, I think you're confused. We discussed some of these ideas together, sure, but the formal proposal and architecture were my development. You contributed some initial thoughts, which I appreciate, but let's be clear about ownership here." The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, that for a moment I almost doubted myself. "I have the original documents," I said. "Time-stamped. I can prove documents that you created while working on company time, using company resources under my management," Gregory interrupted. "Even if your version of events were accurate, which it isn't, any work you produced belongs to Tech Vista. And as your manager, I'm responsible for the output of this team. If you want to make an issue of this, be my guest. But I'd think carefully about your career trajectory here." The threat was clear. Fight this and lose. Accept it and maybe I'd be allowed to stay. I walked back to my desk feeling like I'd been gutted. I logged into my personal cloud storage account, the one I used for backing up my work. I pulled up my original proposal document and checked the metadata created. February 19, 2024. Last modified, February 28, 2024. Gregory's presentation had been dated March 15, 2024, 2 weeks after our meeting where I'd shown him everything. I had proof. Time-stamped, metadata-rich proof that my work existed before his presentation. But what could I do with it? Gregory was right about one thing: I'd created this work as an employee of Tech Vista. The legal ownership was murky at best. And if I went to HR or Patricia directly, it would be my word against a manager with 8 years of company history and political capital. I spent that night crying in my apartment. Then I spent the next night getting angry. And then I spent the following weeks getting methodical. I began documenting everything. I set up a personal encrypted backup system for all my work. I started keeping detailed logs of every meeting, every conversation, every email exchange. I recorded my thought processes, my problem-solving approaches, everything that could demonstrate my unique methodology. Gregory's Adaptive Insights module project officially launched in April. He assembled a team of 6 engineers, including me. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was being assigned to implement my own stolen innovation under the supervision of the thief, but I said yes. I accepted the role without complaint, because I was learning something valuable about corporate warfare. Patience is a weapon. As the project progressed, something interesting started happening. Gregory was good at presenting ideas, but he fundamentally didn't understand the technical depth of what he'd stolen. During our implementation sprints, he would make suggestions that revealed his superficial grasp of the architecture. "Why don't we just run the model training on the main server?" he suggested during one technical planning meeting. "Seems more efficient than distributing it." I kept my face neutral. That would create a bottleneck and potentially impact the performance of the main ERP system. The distributed approach I originally proposed, I caught myself. The distributed approach in the architecture spec avoids that issue by leveraging edge computing resources. Gregory nodded like he'd just been reminded of something he already knew. Right. Good catch, Lauren." My colleagues started noticing the pattern, not enough to suspect the full truth, but enough to shift the team dynamics. Increasingly, people came to me with technical questions instead of Gregory. He retained the official title of project lead, but I became the de facto technical authority. By July, we had a working prototype. It was beautiful, exactly what I'd envisioned in those late-night design sessions 6 months earlier. The system could analyze manufacturing production data, identify patterns, and predict equipment maintenance needs with 87% accuracy. Patricia scheduled a major demonstration for the executive leadership team. This was the moment that would determine whether Adaptive Insights became a core company offering or remained an experimental side project. Gregory prepared for that demo like it was an Olympic event. He rehearsed his presentation repeatedly. He memorized the technical talking points I'd written up. He even practiced fielding potential questions. I was assigned to run the technical side of the demonstration, operating the system while Gregory narrated. The demo day arrived. The executive conference room on the 10th floor with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Austin. Patricia was there, along with our CEO, Daniel Chen, our CFO, Amanda Wu, and 3 other VPs I barely knew. Gregory launched into his presentation with polish and confidence. He explained the business problem, the technical solution, and the potential market impact. He was good at this part, the storytelling, the vision casting. It almost made me sick how naturally he performed. "And now I'll demonstrate the system's capabilities," Gregory said, gesturing to where I sat with my laptop connected to the main display screen. For the next 20 minutes, I walked the executives through the system's features while Gregory provided commentary. The executives were impressed. Daniel Chen, our CEO, kept nodding and asking sharp questions. Then Amanda Wu, the CFO, asked something Gregory wasn't prepared for. "This is remarkable work, Gregory. I'm curious about your methodology. How did you approach the model selection and optimization process? What made you choose this particular architecture over alternatives? Gregory hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Well, it was a matter of evaluating the trade-offs between model complexity and computational efficiency. I looked at several approaches and determined this offered the best balance. Amanda nodded, but she wasn't satisfied. Can you be more specific? What were the other approaches you considered? I watched Gregory fumble through a vague response about various neural network architectures and optimization strategies. He used enough buzzwords to sound plausible to non-technical executives, but anyone with actual expertise could tell he was improvising. Amanda glanced at Patricia, and something unspoken passed between them. But the moment passed, and the demo continued. At the end, Daniel Chen stood and shook Gregory's hand. This is exactly what Tech Vista needs to stay competitive. Exceptional work. Patricia, let's discuss rolling this out to our entire client base. 2 weeks later, Gregory was promoted to senior engineering manager with a significant salary increase and a team of 20 people under his supervision. I received a standard annual cost of living raise of 3% and a generic email thanking me for my contributions to the Adaptive Insights project. That was the moment I stopped being patient and started being strategic. I realized that exposing Gregory through normal channels wasn't going to work. HR would protect management. Patricia, despite her intelligence, was already invested in Gregory's success story. Going public would make me look like a bitter, vindictive employee. I needed something undeniable, something that would make the truth impossible to ignore. I started building my case like a lawyer preparing for trial. I gathered every piece of evidence. My original proposal documents with creation timestamps, my proof-of-concept code repository with commit histories dating back to February, my personal notes and brainstorming documents, emails I'd sent to my college roommate describing my ideas weeks before showing anything to Gregory. But I knew documentation alone wouldn't be enough. I needed a catalyst, an opportunity, a moment when the truth would have maximum impact. That opportunity came in October. Tech Vista announced its annual Innovation Summit, an internal conference where the company showcased its major developments to the entire organization and select industry partners. The keynote presentation would feature the Adaptive Insights module as the flagship achievement of the year. Gregory would be presenting to over 300 people, and Daniel Chen, our CEO, would be introducing him. Personally, I knew I wouldn't get a better moment, but I also knew I couldn't just interrupt the presentation. I needed access to decision-makers who could actually hold Gregory accountable. I spent 2 weeks crafting an email to Daniel Chen's executive assistant, Rebecca. I didn't mention Gregory or the intellectual theft. Instead, I positioned it as a request for a brief meeting to discuss some technical insights about the Adaptive Insights project before the big Innovation Summit presentation. I've been the technical lead on the implementation, I wrote, and I want to make sure Mr. Chen has all the context he needs to present the project accurately. Rebecca responded within a day, scheduling a 15-minute meeting 2 days before the summit. 15 minutes. That was all I had to dismantle Gregory's lie and save my career. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. I arrived 10 minutes early, my laptop bag heavy with printed documentation as backup. Rebecca escorted me into Daniel Chen's office, a minimalist space with a stunning view of the Austin skyline. Daniel was in his mid-50s, the founder of Tech Vista, with the kind of sharp intelligence that built successful companies. He looked up from his computer and smiled warmly. "Lauren Wright, Patricia speaks highly of your technical work. Please sit. Rebecca mentioned you wanted to provide some context for the summit presentation." I'd rehearsed this moment 100 times, But now that I was here, my heart was hammering so hard I thought it might be visible through my shirt. Mr. Chen, I appreciate you taking the time. I have something difficult to tell you, and I have evidence to support everything I'm about to say. His expression shifted to attention. I'm listening. I opened my laptop and pulled up my screen-sharing display so he could see everything I was showing him. The Adaptive Insights module that Gregory Thornton presented and has been credited with developing. I created it, all of it. The original concept, the architecture, the technical specifications. I can prove this with time-stamped documentation that predates his presentation by 3 weeks. I watched Daniel's face carefully. He didn't look angry or dismissive. He looked focused. Those are serious allegations, he said quietly. Walk me through your evidence. I spent the next 10 minutes, and Daniel let it run past 15, then 20, then 30, showing him everything. My original proposal document with file metadata showing creation dates in February. My proof of concept code repository with commit history. My personal notes and diagrams, including early versions that showed my iterative design thinking. Emails to friends outside the company describing my work weeks before Gregory's presentation. Then I showed him the timeline. February 19, I created the initial proposal. March 4, I met with Gregory and shared everything. March 15, Gregory presented his proposal to the department. I'm not a lawyer, I said, and I understand that work I do as a TechVista employee belongs to the company regardless, but the credit, the recognition, the career advancement, those should go to the actual creator. Gregory didn't just use my work, he erased me from it entirely. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, scrolling through the evidence on my laptop screen. Why didn't you come forward immediately? He asked. Honestly, I was afraid. Gregory is my direct manager. He implied there would be consequences if I challenged him, and I wasn't sure anyone would believe me over a manager with 8 years at the company. Daniel nodded slowly. And you're coming forward now because? Because he's about to present my work as his crowning achievement to the entire company and our industry partners. Because if I don't speak up now, this lie becomes permanent. And because I've realized that staying silent makes me complicit in my own erasure. Daniel closed my laptop gently and leaned back in his chair. Lauren, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I need to be very clear with you about next steps. I'm going to investigate this thoroughly, but I can't make any promises about outcomes. What I can promise is that you won't face retaliation for coming forward. Do you understand? I nodded, feeling simultaneously relieved and terrified. Don't discuss this conversation with anyone, including Gregory, Daniel continued. Continue your work as normal. I'll be in touch. The next 2 days were excruciating. I had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. Gregory acted normally, still excited about his upcoming keynote. I forced myself to appear calm, to act like everything was fine. The Innovation Summit began on a Saturday morning. The venue was a hotel conference center that TechVista had rented out, with multiple presentation tracks running simultaneously. Gregory's keynote was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the main ballroom. I sat in the 3rd row, surrounded by colleagues. The room was packed, easily 300 people, maybe more. Industry journalists were present. Some of our major clients had sent representatives. At 9:55 a.m., Patricia took the stage to introduce the keynote. But instead of launching into her prepared remarks about Gregory, she paused. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a slight change to this morning's program. Our CEO, Daniel Chen, would like to address you first. The energy in the room shifted. This wasn't part of the scheduled program. I saw Gregory in the front row look confused, then concerned. Daniel walked on stage with the kind of purposeful calm that signaled something significant was about to happen. Good morning, everyone. I want to talk to you about innovation, real innovation, and what it means for a company's culture and integrity. I felt my pulse quicken. This morning, we were scheduled to present the Adaptive Insights module. as a showcase of Tech Vista's engineering. Excellence, and it is excellent. It's exactly the kind of groundbreaking work that defines our company's future. But before we celebrate this achievement, we need to correct the record about who actually achieved it. The room went completely silent. I could see Gregory's face from where I sat. He'd gone pale. Over the past 48 hours, I've conducted a thorough investigation into the origins of the Adaptive Insights project. I've reviewed documentation, timestamps, code repositories, and interviewed multiple people. The conclusion is unambiguous. Daniel turned to look directly at where I was sitting. "Lauren Mitchell, would you please join me on stage?" My legs barely worked as I stood up. The walk to the stage felt both instantaneous and endless. Daniel extended his hand to help me up the steps. "This is Lauren Mitchell, a software engineer in our development department," Daniel said to the room. "She is the actual creator of the Adaptive Insights module. The original concept, architecture, and technical implementation all originated from her work, beginning in February of this year. The evidence is documented, time-stamped, and conclusive. I looked out at 300 faces staring at me. Then I looked at Gregory, who had half risen from his seat, his expression cycling between shock, anger, and fear. Lauren approached me 2 days ago with evidence that her work had been presented by another employee as his own. As CEO, I take intellectual integrity extremely seriously. This kind of behavior violates everything Tech Vista stands for." Daniel turned to Patricia. "Patricia, effective immediately, Gregory Thornton is terminated from Tech Vista Solutions for intellectual property theft and misrepresentation. Security will escort him from the premises." 2 security personnel I hadn't noticed materialized near the front row. Gregory looked around wildly, as if searching for an escape route or an ally. He found neither. "This is insane, Gregory," said his voice carrying through the silent room. "This is a misunderstanding. Daniel, if we could just discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss," Daniel said firmly. "The evidence is conclusive. You deliberately took credit for work you didn't do. You accepted a promotion and recognition based on a lie. Pack your personal belongings. You have 1 hour." I watched Gregory stumble out of the ballroom, flanked by security. 300 people watched him go. Some looked shocked. Some looked satisfied. A few looked uncomfortable, probably wondering if their own career shortcuts would be exposed next. After Gregory left, Daniel turned back to me. "Lauren, would you like to present your work?" I hadn't prepared a presentation. I hadn't expected this moment. But I nodded anyway. For the next 40 minutes, I walked that room through the Adaptive Insights module. Not Gregory's polished, rehearsed version, but the real story. The late nights figuring out model compression. The breakthrough moment when I realized how to integrate machine learning without rebuilding the entire system. The technical challenges and how I'd solved them. I was nervous and probably not as smooth as Gregory would have been. But I was authentic, and I was speaking about something I'd actually created. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. Not polite professional applause, but genuine, sustained clapping. People stood up. Patricia approached me immediately after. "Lauren, we need to talk about your role in this company moving forward." That conversation happened later that afternoon in Patricia's office. Also present were Daniel Chen and Amanda Wu from finance. "First," Patricia said, "I owe you an apology. I should have noticed the discrepancy. When Amanda pointed out that Gregory seemed superficial on technical details, I should have investigated further." I nodded, not sure what to say. "Second," Daniel continued, "we're promoting you to senior engineering manager, effective immediately. You'll take over Gregory's team and responsibilities. The Adaptive Insights module will continue under your leadership with proper attribution. Your salary will be adjusted to reflect your new role and to compensate for the months of inequity." The salary figure Amanda mentioned was 68% higher than what I'd been making, more than Gregory had been earning. "Third," Patricia added, We're revising our innovation and credit policies to prevent this from happening again. Any employee who believes their work has been misattributed will have a direct channel to executive leadership to report it confidentially. I left that meeting in a daze. Within 72 hours, my life had completely transformed. The following Monday, I walked into what had been Gregory's office. It was now mine. His team, my team now, had been briefed on the situation. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked relieved. My first act as senior engineering manager was to implement a transparent documentation system where every team member's contributions were logged and time-stamped automatically. No one would ever be able to pull what Gregory did again, not on my watch. The Adaptive Insights module launched to our client base 3 months later. It was a massive success, exactly as I'd predicted in my original February proposal. TechVista's stock price rose 12% in the quarter following the launch. My name was on every piece of documentation, every press release, every client presentation. Lauren Mitchell, creator of the Adaptive Insights module, I ran into Gregory once more 6 months after his termination. I was at a coffee shop near my apartment and he walked in. He saw me and froze. For a moment, I thought he might try to apologize or explain himself, but he just turned around and walked back out. I didn't feel triumph in that moment. I didn't feel vindication or satisfaction. I just felt sad that someone had decided that stealing was easier than creating, that someone else's work was more valuable than building his own. But I also felt something else, a bone-deep certainty that I'd done the right thing. That speaking up, despite the risk, despite the fear, had been necessary not just for me, but for the integrity of work itself. Because here's what I learned from this experience. Your work is only truly yours if you're willing to fight for it. Documentation matters. Evidence matters. But more than anything, the courage to speak truth to power matters. I could have stayed silent. I could have accepted being a footnote in someone else's success story. But I didn't. And that choice changed everything. Today, I lead a team of 35 engineers. We're developing the next generation of the Adaptive Insights system, and every single person on my team knows their contributions are valued and credited. I've built a culture where innovation is celebrated and intellectual honesty is non-negotiable. Gregory's career in the tech industry effectively ended that day at the Innovation Summit. Word spread quickly in our professional network. He tried to rebrand himself as a consultant, but his reputation was permanently damaged. I heard through mutual connections that he eventually left Austin entirely, moving to Seattle for a fresh start. I don't take pleasure in his downfall. But I don't regret it either. Actions have consequences. Theft has consequences. And sometimes justice actually prevails. If you're reading this and you've had your work stolen, your ideas plagiarized, your contributions erased, I want you to know something. You're not powerless. Document everything. Keep time-stamped records. Build your evidence carefully and methodically. And when the right moment comes, have the courage to speak up, because your work matters. Your ideas matter. And you deserve credit for what you create. Sometimes the system protects the powerful. Sometimes the politics favor those who have mastered the game. But sometimes, just sometimes, the truth is undeniable enough that even power has to acknowledge it. That's the story of how I lost everything and got it all back. How I learned that patience and evidence are more powerful than anger and accusations. How I discovered that integrity, in the end, is worth fighting for. My name is Lauren Mitchell, and I'm the creator of the Adaptive Insights module, not because I was given that title as a courtesy, but because it's the truth, documented and undeniable, and no one will ever be able to take that away from me again.